Finn Everett had never looked more out of place than he did standing on Court 4 of the Westbridge Country Club, gripping a brand-new Wilson racket in his right hand like it was a boardroom presentation clicker. "Try not to kill anyone with that backswing," a voice to his left called out, light and teasing. He turned and nearly dropped the racket. The tennis instructor walking toward him wasn't the graying, stiff-collared retiree he'd been expecting. She was tall, tan, and wearing a white tennis skirt that made his brain skip like a scratched record. Her brown hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, and she had this confident, relaxed energy that made her look like she belonged in sunshine. "Name's Callie Kensington," she said, holding out her hand. "I'm guessing you're Mr. Everett?" "Finn. Just Finn," he said, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, unexpectedly so. "This was a terrible idea. You haven't even hit a ball yet," Callie said with a grin. "Besides, I heard CEOs like a challenge." He narrowed his eyes. "Who told you I'm a CEO?" "Your assistant when she booked 12 private sessions in a row." "That's either someone who really wants to learn, or someone being forced into it." Finn exhaled. "It was a birthday gift. From my board. I think they're trying to kill me with cardio." Callie laughed then, the sound bright and unfiltered. "Well, I'm not a killer. You'll survive." "Maybe." He stepped onto the court, suddenly aware of how out of rhythm he felt in this world. He was used to glass towers, mergers, and financial projections. Not white lines, rackets, and women who smiled like they actually enjoyed life. "All right," Callie said, tossing him a ball. "Let's see what we're working with." What they were working with apparently was a disaster. His first serve hit the fence. The second bounced backward. The third hit his own shin. Callie bit her lip, pretending not to laugh. "Okay, we'll start with footwork." Their first hour passed with her guiding him across the court, correcting his stance and occasionally dodging his wild shots. But it wasn't the tennis that had Finn sweating, it was her. The way she looked at him without an ounce of fear or flattery. The way she touched his arm when adjusting his form. The way she said his name like it wasn't attached to a billion-dollar company. He didn't want it to end. As they walked off the court, Callie handed him a towel. "Not bad for a first-timer. You only almost died twice." "I'll aim for once next time," he said. "You free Friday morning? We'll work on your swing." He nodded too quickly. "Yeah, I'll clear my schedule." She tilted her head. "You clear your whole schedule for a tennis lesson?" He offered a half shrug. "I just did." Callie blinked, surprised for the first time. "All right then, Finn Everett. See you Friday." As she walked away, he watched her go. He didn't know what had just happened on that court. But for the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about stock prices, acquisitions, or quarterly reports. He was thinking about her. By their third lesson, he'd stopped wearing dress shoes to the court. By their fourth, he could almost return a serve. By their fifth, he knew that Callie had grown up in coastal Carolina, that she used to compete semi-pro until a shoulder injury sidelined her, and that she taught tennis now because she loved it, not because it paid well. He hadn't told her who he really was. Not fully. She knew his name, knew he was a CEO, but didn't seem to care. She teased him the same whether he stumbled on a serve or accidentally called the racket a paddle. "Come on, you're improving," she said one morning, tossing him a ball. "You're not a complete disaster anymore." "Wow. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me this week." She grinned. "You need better friends." "I don't really do friends," Finn said, catching the ball midair. "I do. Meetings. Contracts. Deals." Callie raised an eyebrow. "That sounds exhausting." "It is." She came closer, took the ball from his hand. "You ever think about quitting?" He blinked. "Quitting what?" "The job. The empire. All of it." Finn stared at her. No one had ever asked him that. Not in years. "I wouldn't even know who I was without it." Callie held his gaze for a beat too long. Then she smiled. "Let's find out who you are with a backhand." He laughed, surprised by how easy it was with her. 2 weeks later, he found himself waiting outside the court early, holding a smoothie in one hand. When Callie arrived, wind-blown and flushed from the sun. He handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked, eyebrows lifting. "Your usual. Mango banana, no dairy." She stared at him. "You remembered that?" "Of course." Callie took the smoothie, but didn't drink it. "Finn." "What? You're not just here for tennis anymore, are you?" He looked at her, every part of him warring with the part that said to keep things professional. But he couldn't lie. Not to her. "No," he said. "I'm not." She held his gaze. "You're my student. I can quit. Don't you dare. I've worked too hard on that serve." They both laughed, but the air between them had shifted. And when she took a sip of the smoothie finally, her eyes softened. "This is really good." "I know." As they walked to the court, their hands brushed. She didn't move away. And Finn Everett, billionaire, CEO, man who hadn't dated in years, felt something that had nothing to do with tennis and everything to do with the woman beside him. He never expected a lesson to change his life. But Callie Kensington was no ordinary instructor. And his heart, it was already in play. The sky over Westbridge was overcast, thick clouds rolling in like a slow tide. Finn stood just inside the fencing of Court 4, watching the wind ruffle the nets and scatter a cluster of leaves across the baseline. He wasn't dressed for tennis. Not today. When Callie walked up, her bag slung over one shoulder and her visor tugged low, she stopped short. "You're early," she said, her eyes flicking to the dark gray cashmere coat he wore instead of his usual athletic gear. "And overdressed." He didn't answer right away. Callie set her bag down and crossed her arms, waiting. "I need to show you something," Finn said. She raised a brow. "Okay. Not here. Just come with me. I'll bring you back in an hour." Callie hesitated. "You're not about to make me sign an NDA, are you?" "No." "But I'm asking you to trust me." Her eyes searched his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Let me grab my jacket." They walked in silence to the front parking lot where Finn's car, a sleek black coupe with doors that opened upward, waited like something out of a spy movie. Callie paused, looking it over. "Let me guess. You don't just drive this to impress people." He opened the passenger door without answering. She slid in, glancing at the interior stitched in dark leather, the console blinking with a custom interface she didn't recognize. Once Finn got in beside her, he pulled away from the curb with effortless precision. "I'm not kidnapping you," he said after a beat. "Just clearing that up." "I figured," she replied calmly. "You're too well groomed to be a criminal." 15 minutes later, the car curved up a private drive lined with elms and iron lanterns. At the top of the hill, a set of antique gates opened without a key or code. Callie turned to him sharply. "Is this your house?" she asked. "No," he said. "It's my grandfather's." Or was. They parked at the edge of a circular driveway in front of a stone estate that looked like it had been plucked from the English countryside. Callie stepped out slowly. "You brought me to a mansion. On a Wednesday. I brought you to the place where I learned how to lie," Finn said quietly. She turned. "What?" He was already walking toward the front steps. She followed. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar and age. There were oil paintings lining the walls, a grand piano in the corner, and light filtering in through tall, cathedral-style windows. Finn led her to a small sitting room with 2 leather chairs and a carved chess set frozen mid-game. "My grandfather built this company from nothing," he said. "He was a genius, also ruthless. I spent every summer here while my parents traveled. He told me I had to earn everything, even love." Callie sat slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "I don't talk about this," Finn continued, "but I think you deserve to know why I've been different with you." She didn't interrupt. "I haven't let anyone in since I took over the company. Not really. I've controlled every variable of my life. Until I walked onto that court and couldn't even hold a racket properly." Callie leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. "You let me see that version of you. The one who couldn't control it all." "I didn't mean to," he said. "But I wanted to be around you. Even if it meant being bad at something in front of you." Her eyes softened just a little. You don't need to show me fancy houses to prove anything. I'm not trying to impress you, he said. I'm trying to be honest. For once. Callie stood and walked to the piano, brushing her fingers along the keys without pressing them. Music lessons too? My mother tried, he said. I was terrible. She turned, leaning against the instrument. So this is the real Finn Everett. Private estate, tragic childhood, and terrible piano skills. He didn't smile. I don't want you to find out who I am from Google, or from someone whispering behind your back. Callie crossed the room, standing in front of him. I don't care if your net worth has commas. I care if you mean what you say. I do. She studied him again. Then let me ask you something. Anything. Why did you really start those lessons? Finn exhaled. Because I saw you across the court once when I came to meet a board member. You were laughing with a kid who couldn't hit a single ball. And I couldn't stop watching. Callie's expression flickered. I didn't know how to talk to you, he admitted. So I made the club schedule me lessons. She blinked once. You orchestrated 12 sessions just to meet me? He nodded. I thought one wouldn't be enough. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she reached down and took his hand. I don't know what this is, she said. But I'm not walking into it blind. You won't have to. A distant clap of thunder rolled through the sky. Callie glanced out the window. I should get back before the rain hits. I'll drive you. As they walked back to the car, Finn opened his umbrella above both of them. She didn't pull away when his arm brushed hers. The quiet between them wasn't awkward, it was something else. Something building. Once inside the car, she looked at him again. You said you'd bring me back in an hour. You have 10 minutes left. I can stall, he said. Callie looked out the window, smiling faintly. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. He drove her back in silence, but it was the kind that buzzed, electric with questions not yet asked and answers neither of them were ready to give. When they reached the club, she unbuckled her seatbelt and paused before opening the door. Next lesson's still Friday, she said. Don't be late. I won't be. She stepped out, then leaned down slightly through the open window. And Finn? Yes. No more smoothies. They're suspicious. Then she was gone. He watched her walk toward the courts, rain just beginning to dust the air. Finn didn't move until she disappeared from view. And even then, he didn't drive away. Something had shifted, and it wasn't going back. Rain lashed against the tall glass panels of Finn Everett's penthouse, the city below flickering in and out of view through the downpour. He stood barefoot by the window, still in the same navy shirt he'd worn to the office, sleeves rolled to the elbows, collar loosened. His phone buzzed on the marble kitchen island behind him, but he didn't move. Cancel dinner, he said aloud, knowing his voice-activated assistant would take care of it. He wasn't in the mood to smile through another charity gala. Not tonight. Not after what happened the day before when Callie had looked at him with something that wasn't quite affection but wasn't indifference either. Something in between. Something charged. He turned away from the window, the silence of the penthouse pressing in heavy. There were no footsteps echoing across the stone floors, no music playing from the recessed speakers, no sound of laughter. Just the low hum of the city below and the whisper of his own thoughts. He hadn't stopped thinking about her. Callie had taken root somewhere between logic and longing in a space he rarely allowed anyone to occupy. He hadn't planned for this. Hadn't wanted it. But now she was there in his head, in his chest, in every breath he exhaled that didn't feel full unless she was near. He reached for his jacket. By the time he pulled into the lot behind the tennis club, the rain had thinned to a drizzle. The courts were dark, but the low glow of the main office was still on. He walked through the side entrance, the ground damp beneath his shoes, and tapped lightly on the glass door. Callie appeared a moment later, her hair damp, a sweatshirt tugged over her tank top. She blinked at him through the glass before unlocking the door. You're not scheduled tonight, she said, stepping aside to let him in. I know. You drove here in the rain. He ran a hand through his hair. I needed to see you. She folded her arms, leaning back against the reception desk. Is everything all right? No, he said. And yes. I haven't felt like this in a long time. Callie raised an eyebrow. What does that mean exactly? I've been careful for years. I built walls so high I forgot what it felt like to let someone through them. And now I'm standing here like an idiot, hoping you'll let me explain what I can't even fully make sense of. She studied him, her expression unreadable. I'm not the kind of woman you can just buy dinner and flowers for and expect everything to fall into place. I know that. That's why I'm not offering flowers. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She took it hesitantly and opened it. Her eyes scanned the page, confusion flickering across her face. What is this? My resignation letter. Dated 3 days from now. Her gaze snapped up. You're quitting. I sold my stake this morning. I'll still be a silent partner, but I'm stepping down from the board. No more day-to-day. No more 70-hour weeks. No more pretending I care more about margins than my own life. Callie's voice dropped. Why would you do that? He stepped closer, his tone quiet but steady. Because I don't want to live a life where I only feel alive on a tennis court once a week. Because I want mornings that aren't booked start to finish, and nights where I'm not buried in numbers. And because I can't keep walking into rooms where I'm the richest man but the most alone. Her hand tightened around the letter. I'm not asking for anything from you, he said. I just wanted you to know that meeting you didn't just change my week. It changed everything. Callie set the paper down slowly. You don't even know what my life looks like outside this club. Then tell me, he said. Tell me what I don't know. She hesitated. I coach kids at the public courts on Saturdays. I bartend twice a week at a rooftop lounge to make rent. I still talk to my mom every Sunday. I don't have a trust fund, and I've never flown first class. I can't just step into your world, Finn. I'm not asking you to. I'm stepping out of mine. The silence that followed was thick. The rain outside now barely more than a mist. Callie bit the inside of her cheek. You're serious. I've never been more. She looked down, then back up. I don't know what this is, but it's real. And that scares me. Me too. She exhaled, the lines of her posture softening for the first time in weeks. Okay. Then let's stop pretending we're still just coach and student. Finn searched her face. What are we? She didn't answer. Instead, she walked around the reception desk, stopping just in front of him. I don't know yet, but I want to find out. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Outside, the rain stopped. Inside, everything started. The sky was streaked in hues of coral and lavender as the sun began its descent over the Atlantic. A soft breeze blew through the open terrace of the rooftop venue, brushing past linen tablecloths and flickering lanterns. String lights glowed overhead, casting a golden warmth across the intimate setting of 30 guests. Finn stood beneath a canopy of ivy and lights, adjusting the cuff of his crisp ivory shirt. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and salt. Callie stepped into view from the side entrance, wearing a pale blue dress that caught the light like moving water. Her hair was pinned in soft waves, a single silver chain resting against her collarbone. Finn's breath caught not at her appearance, but at the way she looked at him, like the world had narrowed to just the two of them. She stopped a few feet away, scanning the space. You did all this? He nodded once. I figured if I was going to ask you something, I should at least do it somewhere memorable. Her brow lifted slightly. Ask me what? He motioned toward the edge of the terrace where the city skyline met the sea. Come see. They walked in silence, the soft notes of a live cello trio drifting from behind a curtain where the musicians played unseen. When they reached the railing, Finn turned to her. I've been in a lot of rooms, he said. Boardrooms, conference halls, private clubs. But none of them felt like this. Callie's hands rested lightly on the stone balustrade. Like what? Like I'm standing in the exact place I'm supposed to be. She glanced at him. Finn. I know it's fast, he said, and I know you're not someone who's impressed by gestures or grand settings. But I didn't do this to impress you. I did this to show you that I see you. Not as someone who fits into my life, but as someone I want to build a life with. The breeze lifted her hair slightly as she stared at him, eyes searching. "You once told me you didn't really do friends," she said. "But you've become the person I want to talk to first about everything. Even the things that scare me." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her eyes widened. "I'm not asking you to marry me," he said quickly. "Not yet. I'm asking if you'll move in with me, so we can see what it looks like when two very different people try to build something real." Callie stared at the box, then at him. "You want me to live with you? I want to wake up next to you, hear you yell at the news, eat cereal with you at midnight. I want the ordinary stuff, Callie." She opened the box slowly. Inside was a single silver key on a delicate chain. "When you're ready," he said softly. "No pressure. No timelines. Just truth." She didn't say anything at first. He watched her face shift, surprise, then hesitation, then something that looked like surrender. "I don't have expensive clothes," she said. "I'd be bringing a thrift store couch and a cat that hates everyone. I have a guest room that needs both," he said. Her lip twitched with something close to amusement. "You don't even like cats." "I didn't. But I like you." She reached forward and took the key, then looped the chain around her neck. "I'm not saying yes because of the rooftop or the view or the music. I know. I'm saying yes because when I think about not seeing you every day, it feels wrong." Finn stepped closer and touched her cheek. "Then let's get it right." She leaned into him, their foreheads brushing. "You still owe me a proper backhand." He laughed quietly. "We'll build a court in the garden." Callie smiled. "You're serious." "I'm always serious when I love someone." That was the first time he'd said it. The words hung between them for a moment, weightless and true. She didn't hesitate. "I love you, too." The cello music swelled behind them as they kissed, slow and certain, the kind of kiss that didn't ask for anything except the future. When they pulled apart, guests began to filter in from the side stairwell, friends, colleagues, a few faces from the club. No one knew exactly why they'd been invited, only that Finn Everett had sent a personal message, something no one had ever received before. As the evening unfolded, Callie wandered through the crowd, now wearing his blazer over her shoulders. She greeted people with a calm ease, laughing with the bartenders, hugging two of the junior instructors who'd arrived late. Finn watched her from across the terrace, his heart calm in a way it had never been, even during the most profitable quarter of his life. Later, as the first stars appeared and the last of the guests began to leave, she found him near the railing again. "You didn't check your phone once tonight," she said. "I didn't need to." She bumped his shoulder with hers. "You know, I always thought love would be louder. And? It's not. It's just clear." He took her hand, lifting it to his lips. "Let's keep it that way." They stood there until the terrace emptied, the lights dimmed, and the music faded. The city stretched out before them, filled with stories and strangers and noise. But in that moment, with her hand in his and the key around her neck, none of it mattered. He'd come to the court for a lesson. What he found was the one match he never expected to win. And he never planned to let her go. Spring arrived in Westbridge like a slow, blooming promise, gentle winds, longer days, and streets lined with magnolia trees in full, fragrant bloom. Callie stepped out of the brownstone townhouse she and Finn now shared, her tennis bag slung over one shoulder, a coffee thermos in her other hand. Her mornings started earlier now, but they never felt rushed. Not since everything changed. Finn leaned against the doorframe, barefoot, his shirt half-buttoned, and a sleepy look in his eyes that made her pause halfway down the steps. "You forgot your lunch," he said, holding up a brown paper bag with her name scrawled across it in his messy handwriting. She jogged back up, took it from his hand, and kissed his cheek. "What's in it?" "Something edible, possibly nutritious." "I Googled it." "Risky," she said, but she tucked it into her tote anyway. He reached for her fingers, lacing them with his. "You sure you don't want me to come with you? You'll make the kids nervous. You still look like a guy who owns a yacht." "I sold the yacht." "Exactly." Finn laughed, and she let herself look at him for an extra second. This version of him, the one who didn't have a security team trailing him, who spent Sundays barefoot in the kitchen trying new recipes, who now answered business calls only twice a week, was someone she hadn't expected to fall so hard for. But she had. and it never stopped surprising her how easy it felt. "I'll be back by 6, she said. "Dinner? I have something better planned." She lifted one eyebrow. He said nothing more, only kissed her quickly and disappeared back inside. By the time she returned, the sun was dipping low and the living room was lit with soft amber light. She kicked off her shoes and followed the sound of music, jazz, low and steady, into the kitchen. There was no sign of Finn. Then she noticed the envelope on the counter with her name on it. She opened it and read the single line inside, "Come to the garden." She hadn't seen the back courtyard since winter. They talked about renovating it, maybe putting in a small fountain or a dining table, but work and life had gotten in the way. Still, she slipped out the back door, curious. What she saw stopped her cold. Finn stood in the center of the garden beneath a canopy of fairy lights strung between the trees. The once overgrown space had been transformed, gravel paths lined with fresh blooms, a stone bench nestled beneath a blooming dogwood, and in the center a small tennis court perfectly tailored to their dimensions, with a net stretched tight and new rackets leaning against the gate. Callie stepped forward, stunned. "You did all this?" He turned, hands in his pockets. "Told you I'd build you a court." Her throat tightened. "When?" "Bit by bit. After you left for practice. On weekends. I wanted it to be ready by spring." She walked toward him slowly, eyes wide. "It's perfect. I wanted to give you something that lasts," he said. "Something that's yours, not bought, not branded. Just us." She touched the net, then looked back at him. "You built me a court because you love me. I built you a court because loving you made me want to build things again. Not empires. Not portfolios. Just a place where we can be. Where we belong." Callie crossed to him and slipped her arms around his waist. "You're not the man I met on that first day." "No," he said, resting his forehead against hers. "I'm better. Because of you." They stood there for a long moment, the lights above them glowing like stars, the scent of lavender and fresh earth surrounding them like a cocoon. Then she stepped back, grinning. "You still owe me that backhand. I've been practicing." "Sure you have. You want to test me?" he asked, already reaching for the rackets. She took one from him, her grip familiar. "Sure. You're on." They played until the sky turned navy and the first stars blinked awake. Laughter echoed off the brick walls and the ball bounced between them like a heartbeat. When they finally collapsed onto the stone bench, sweaty and out of breath, Callie leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. "I never thought my life would look like this," she said quietly. "Neither did I. But I'm glad it does." He kissed her temple. "So am I." A few weeks later, they stood on that same court, surrounded by friends, colleagues, and a few of the kids Callie taught, all dressed up for a celebration no one saw coming. Finn wore a charcoal suit without a tie, his hand firmly in hers. Callie wore a simple white dress that fluttered in the breeze, her smile brighter than any diamond. There were no vows read from cards. No long speeches. Just Finn looking into her eyes, saying, "I never wanted forever until I met you." And Callie replying, "You showed me that love doesn't have to be loud to be real." They sealed it with a kiss, applause rising around them, but none of it mattered. Not the setting, not the guests. Just the way she looked at him like he was her home. And the way he held her like he'd never let her go. Later that night, as they danced barefoot on the court beneath the lights, Finn whispered, "You changed everything." She smiled up at him. "So did you." And in that garden, in the city where their paths had once barely crossed, they began a life that didn't need to be perfect, it just had to be theirs. Forever started on a tennis court. And neither of them ever looked back.